instruction. Who's gonna run the presentation? Bill, is that you? Can you put the first slide?
No,
the agenda?
I think you're. I thought you were running the presentation.
Oh, okay. I don't have it handy, so I can
pull it
yeah.
up, no problem.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay, so while you're pulling it up, I can give some instruction. So all the consultants, please, Paula, you're taking notes, right? So please put your name, last name, company that you work for, and email address in the chat. What we will be doing, we will be collecting all the information. We will be compiling the list of the attendees, and we will be posting them at the same time. Thank you, whoever shared, Peter. Okay, we will be posting the presentation and the sign-in sheet in the on the website, so that everybody can see it. So thank you. I see that a lot of people are already doing it. So what are we doing today? There are, let's see, probably some other people are coming, but I'll just give a quick introduction. Then all of you, I'm sure, received the supplemental package. We'll go, this is a critical project for our net zero effort. So there are going to be a lot of my staff presenting, starting with Peter De Bruin, elaborating on some of the net zero context for this project. And we'll go with Clyde or Bill Rogg and John Jacopucci, getting a little bit more in detail on the scope of work. And then I will conclude with defining some of the selection criteria, some of the direction that as a consultant we're expecting when you're responding to this, again, very important RFQ. Thank you again for putting, Mary Beth, thank you for putting your name, last name, and company, and email address. That's great. Let's wait another couple of minutes so that we allow some latecomers to join. Please mute your, unless you're speaking, please mute your Zoom. And what we will be doing, we will leave some time for Q&A, some questions at the end. So let's wait another couple of minutes. Okay. So this is great. So we'll, for those of you who just joined, I think there are 3 more people that joined recently. Please put your name, last name, company, and email address in the chat. We are collecting all attendees and we'll be posting it. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking. We'll leave some questions at the end of the presentation. And we'll, I think we can start. So thank you everyone for being here. We are not recording this session, so thank you everyone for attending. This is the consultant briefing for the CHP study to achieve net zero. This is a critical project for our net zero effort. We are really looking forward to have all of you here. The ultimate goal of this the team is going to select, the selection is going to select the best team that they can help us get to the net zero by 2031. Probably this building is not going to be done by 2031 holistically, but put in place steps to get there. So I'll pass it now to Peter De Bruin, who is leading our net zero effort for the authority, and he will touch upon the context within which the Central Heating Plan is going to be studied and analyzed. Peter?
Great. Thank you, Luciana. Massport announced an ambitious goal, as many of you know, to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions for Massport's Scope 1 and 2 emissions by 2031, and released its roadmap to net zero, detailing its plans to achieve that goal approximately 1 year ago in March 2022. The roadmap identified primary pathways and initiatives that would need to be completed in order to achieve this full-scale decarbonization of operations, and we'll show you some details relevant to this RFQ in a few moments here. The 5 pathways, as you can see here, depicted are energy efficiency and conservation, clean and renewable energy sources, sustainable ground transportation, partnerships, and a culture of sustainability and innovation. These pathways are meant to complement and overlap one another, reflecting the wide range of opportunities that Massport has to slow climate change, protect human health, and create positive change for the community. Massport is taking action to reduce emissions simultaneously across multiple pathways. Finally, on this slide, a wide array of actions and strategies were identified to address the emissions reductions necessary both overall and by pathway. Importantly, a series of priority actions were developed to focus and prioritize those actions that should be advanced with urgency. The primary focus of this net zero emissions roadmap is to reduce Massport's Scope 1 and 2 emissions, over which Massport has direct control. Insofar as Scope 3 or non-Massport emissions are the dominant source at all Massport facilities, Massport will also continue to attempt to influence Scope 3 emissions reductions to the maximum extent possible. As depicted on this slide, Massport's Scope 1 and 2 emissions include varied sources across all of Massport's aviation and maritime operations. The majority of greenhouse gas emissions at Massport facilities are generated by operations at Logan Airport, and across all sites and facilities and operations, the Logan Central Heating Plant is the primary source of stationary emissions. As you can see from this slide, there are a number of key initiatives identified to achieve the decarbonization of Massport's operations and to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions. The central heating plant was identified as the single largest source of Massport-controlled greenhouse gas emissions, and therefore is a priority action Massport must take to achieve its net zero goals. The central heating plant was also identified as one of the most complex challenges to address to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and potentially one of the most expensive opportunities as well. With that, I will turn it over to Bill Rogg, who will review the project details and system complexities. Bill?
Yes, please. I'm Bill Rogg. I'm the Aviation Program Manager here for Capital Programs. Clyde Lee Yard, who is going to make the presentation, who actually runs the central heating plant, also handles snow melters during snow events. So he's a bit busy and asked us to do the slides. So basically, the central heating plant at Logan Airport serves a number of facilities. It serves the terminals, the offices in the West Garage, and the air traffic control tower. So this is a study not just of the central heating plant, but also the distribution systems that come out of the central heating plant, as well as the physical infrastructure that's within the service area. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So this is the central heating plant that a schematic. Basically, you can see there we have 5 cooling towers. We've got 3 boilers. The boilers are 1967 vintage. We have electric chillers and steam chillers. Basically, this last year, the primary means of chilling water was the electric chillers, because electricity was fairly cheap and gas was fairly expensive. However, we do use the steam chillers in order to stabilize the usage of natural gas. Our contracts require that we pay for the natural gas whether we use it or not over the entire year. So we have a situation where we basically run our boilers 365 days a year. They sometimes power the steam chillers, but they also send steam and hot water to various facilities where that is used to temper the air, the chilled chilled air that's generated by the fan room. So you have a situation where, this was set up for when energy was very inexpensive and readily available. So we have a situation during the summer where basically we have the chillers battling the boilers. So it's a great system, works really well, but has some efficiency limitations. So next slide. Basically, we have 3 boilers. The total usage for the airport, including the new terminal expansion, is about 108,000 pounds of steam per hour. We have, in the chiller section, we have 2 steam chillers, 4 electric chillers, 5 cooling towers. Current active load is 16,000 tons. Next slide. This is just a schematic of where the central heating plant is and where the basic nodes are. I'll talk a little bit more in a second about what we provide to each terminal. One of the challenges you're going to find is that this is a system that the oldest building here in the service area is 1955, and the latest, which is, you'll see on here, that kind of red crescent, is the terminal expansion that hasn't even opened yet. And we provide a variety of different mediums to heat the terminals in the service area. All of them are cooled by chilled water, but we provide steam. We provide steam directly to hot decks in fan rooms. We provide high temperature hot water to various different things. So it's not there's not one system that serves everything, but generally these mediums come out of the central heating plant through utility tunnels, and they end up at these various facilities. Like I said, the heating plant, the boilers are operate 24/7, 365, typically one boiler. If we're running one boiler, we keep another boiler warm. So, it's quite a energy intensive process that we have. For the cooling seasons, as I said, the steam is utilized to run the steam chillers, but also to temper the air in the reheat coils in the terminal. So it's a fairly inefficient process by today's standards. On top of it, there was a transition at one time to go from the steam to high temperature hot water when they built Terminal A in 2006. So Terminal A is high temperature hot water, but then Massport kind of had a change of heart and went back to steam again. So the new Terminal E that they're building is heated with steam. So like I said, it's kind of all over the lot what we have here as far as the configuration and also the condition of some of these utilities. This is just a slide, and we'll make this presentation available to you afterwards. I don't have to go through all this, but it just basically shows that we provide a variety of different mediums to the various different places, depending on what vintage they are. So it's kind of all over the lot. Next slide. So the chilled water plant, the chilled water, April to November. Like I said before, we use mostly electricity this last year as the primary source, but we are constrained as far as the availability of electricity at Logan Airport. If we had enough power, we're basically, with the electric chillers we have, we could be net zero today if there was clean power. And we were able to shut down the boilers so that we, had a different way to temper the air in the terminals themselves. So, this just describes how it, the chilled water coils in the fan rooms and so forth that receive the chilled water. One thing that's as it says here, we provide generally 1 CMF per square foot at 55 degrees to all the spaces that are conditioned. It goes out through the V boxes, and then it has reheat coils. So the one thing that's significant at the bottom there, it talks about we've gone through and replaced a great many of the fan rooms that we have at Logan Airport, and these fan rooms have quite sophisticated technology. They have fan wall technology so that it can be demand responsive, and they have heat wheel recovery and so forth. What we haven't done is to upgrade the controls in the terminals to make these units completely demand responsive. So while we have some fairly sophisticated HVAC equipment in the fan rooms, they tend to run at a constant volume and are not demand responsive, both due to the the fact that we've been replacing these over the last couple of years and just haven't gotten to the part of a controls upgrade, but also there's no single control system that ties in all of the terminals and the central heating plant. So there's some challenges that we have there, both due to the configuration, but also the controls. So this is, I'll turn it over to John Jacopucci now. John is Mechanical Engineering Capital Programs, and he's the project manager.
Thanks, Bill. Good afternoon. So I'm going to be talking about some of the challenges to consider for this project. Just starting right off, in addition to the plant, we do have the distribution system comprising of the pumps, the network of piping that run through the underground tunnels from the previous maps, as you saw, going out to the different service area buildings, which comprises of the terminals, the garages, and the air traffic control tower. So all those individually, when they combine, they create this complex system that you have to look at maybe from that 35,000 foot elevation view as a whole, but then also zone into how it's distributed from the plant to those buildings and what those buildings' HVAC systems comprise of. The other challenge of the project in the study would be, as Bill was mentioning earlier with Terminal C, Logan's buildings were not built all at the same time. They span across 68 years in terms of their age, starting with Terminal C in 1955, going up to the new expansion for Terminal E. As a result, there was never really any comprehensive or fully integrated control system that could allow all these buildings to speak to each other and through the central heating plant as well. So everything was sort of kind of remote or on its own or operating independently. Also, the other challenge of all these buildings being constructed over the years, they were constructed with different technologies at their time, and so now you have different configurations, different technologies present in all the buildings, so each one poses its own unique challenge when you look at it individually. The condition of the HVAC infrastructure overall has to be considered as well. That varies differently from the different buildings, as well as just the distribution from the plant to service area buildings as well. The condition of that needs to be looked at. Our physical infrastructure, the way we operate, that proves to be not as efficient as we would like it to be. So there's some limitations on how efficient we are operating at the moment. That needs to be taken into consideration as well. The central plant and the airport itself, as you can imagine, doesn't close. It's a 24/7 operation, 365 days a year. The service area of the central heating plant is also fully developed. So what you see with the footprint of the buildings that we have, that's what we have to work with in terms of what our equipment is, where it's located, and how it serves the terminal buildings and the garages. Next slide, please. Externally, we have our sensitivity to the local communities here in East Boston and the surrounding areas. It's a densely populated area. We're right in the middle of the city for the most part, so we need to be aware of that and take that into consideration. The technology is rapidly changing, so as we are trying to foresee what type of system or systems and how we want to approach those in the future, we need to take all considerations and review what the current technologies are, where we think they're going, how we can implement those. That also goes with the energy types. The availability of having an adequate supply of practical sources of energy may limit our selections of what we're trying to do, but we also want to review our options and also take into account the availability of clean power and how that can play a role in ultimately achieving our net zero.
John, can I just interject a little bit on this?
Sure.
I just want to make sure that everyone that we want creative solutions. We want out of the box ideas. So it is critical that the consultants come with, even if at the end we decided for many reasons maybe not to go ahead, we don't want to be conservative. We want to be leaders, and we want to go outside what is the usual way of doing business. Okay, it's a study. This is the best time and the cheapest time to investigate creative solutions. So go ahead, John.
Nope, thank you, Luciana. So yeah, just expanding off of that, all options are on the table. And so as we're looking at even how energy is distributed, our infrastructure needs to be evaluated, and how we could possibly deliver various types of energy into the airport. And we also have to look at how our infrastructure may hinder that too, and may constrain it. And so we want to look at all means and methods. The other thing to consider is each energy scenario and option will have certain permitting requirements. Those take time. Those need to be factored in as well when considering all the different options. And next slide, please. So how we are looking at the overall study is like a three-step process, with the first step just characterizing of the existing conditions. So first and foremost, understanding the goals and provisions of our net zero climate action roadmap is essential. We also are looking to have to see how the incorporation of BIM and the lean principles are going to be utilized and into the execution plan of the study. We suggest you also take advantage of any available models we have, as well as any historical information that our folks in the facility departments and various departments can offer. So part of characterizing all the existing conditions, we want to take into account our existing physical construction of the buildings and our configurations of our various systems. Modeling the existing systems, we want to be able to see how what we can model with and how we can calibrate that based off of our actual energy usage. So that will translate into hopefully developing different schemes that we could take a look at based on what we have in that existing infrastructure. And then that would develop and model our real world energy supply scenarios. Next slide, please. So step 2 of the study, thanks. Step 2 of our study is to also prepare the comprehensive HVAC strategy. So basing it on the realistic energy supply option from phase 1, we want to see what our options are, how we can employ those new technologies, considering also how they're operating now, how we need to operate them, and how the controls can be used to make that all work. We want to focus on the continuity of our operations, and also be cognizant of the understanding of phasing this transition between what we have now and what we're proposing. So it's great to say that we want to have, we're going to have this new technology, a new system and approach, but we also need to know that we are a working facility 24/7. How do we phase that in? How do we make that work with what we have and maintain continuity of our services and operations as we transition from our old to new? Step 3, to develop an implementation strategy. So we would like to have you identify all the options for all the various energy supply scenarios that we can consider. And we would look at this basically from a short-term, mid-term, long-term approach, with the short-term being the immediate, what we could do to make improvements right away within the first 1 to 3 years. What can we do in the next phases on like a midterm strategy from outwards of 7 years, with the long-term goal of reaching our net zero requirements. Next slide. Next slide, please.
So I can take this one. Thank you, John. So the selection criteria are very consistent with what we have done recently. They are equally weighted, and there are 5 equally weighted criteria. in the supplemental package, you will see in much more depth. This is just a high-level summary on what the criteria are. Obviously, there is a demonstrated experience of the team in similar project and size and complexity. The understanding of it's an RFQ, but usually in our RFQ, we also, if you have done similar work, you can project understanding and a technical approach on how you will approach the project, and not this. We don't want the solution, but how are you approaching? Will you be approaching the technical aspect of this challenge? And obviously QA QC. Internally, how do you do QA QC, which is critical as well. We have done a laser scanning, as was mentioned previously in the central heating plant, but obviously BIM and lean are critical to gain efficiency, and the efficiency is gained mainly if you have large projects. So an expectation is to see how you have used BIM, VDC, and lean previously. Obviously, experience sustainable and resilient high-performing building. This is the core of this project. So it is important that you elaborate also on the net zero aspect of the energy efficiency aspect. And finally, last but not least, is the DE&I effort, because we are probably going to look for federal funding. We are not looking for, we cannot mix M&W and DBE. So for this project, we are going to look for DBE firm. So please make sure during the last, one of the last project, people responded with M&W and did not mention a DBE. Was a project that requested DBE. So we had to consider 0%. So it's not only the goal, that's a big part of the selection criteria, but it's also what you're doing internally, how you're handling the workforce in the firm, what are the activities and initiatives that you have in the firm or as a group or part of organization that show your effort within the DE&I realm. So again, they are equally weighted. What we often see is people responding, especially in situations like this, taking a page and a half for 1 and 2, and relegating maybe 1, 2, and 4 in this case, and then relegating 3 and 5, just half a page, a few statements. Does not help the designer selection panel to make an informed decision. So just make sure that you're highlighting all the effort that you're making it. And on the BIM and lean, just don't tell us what it is and what is the benefit of using BIM and lean. We know that's why they're one of the selection criteria. So tell us how you have gained, what's your experience, and how you have gained efficiency in other projects. You can go to the next slide. Another critical element that we have seen making a mistake from firms, especially if the firms are outside the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, or the majority of or they have a small office in the Commonwealth. So to apply as a prime, the majority you need to follow within the MGL Chapter 7C, Section 44, which means that the majority of the board of directors or the ownership of the firm has to have a registration. The majority of the board of directors needs to be registered architect or engineer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So if you don't fall into this bucket, you are disqualified. So please, I know that consultants spend a lot of money in writing proposals. Make sure you fall into that category. You can call the designer selection board at the Commonwealth, at the state, if you want to have more explanation of what does it mean. We have our own designer selection panel, but those rules are imposed to us by the Commonwealth. So the majority of the board of directors needs to have a registration, engineer or architect, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts by the time that you apply, that you submit the application. The last few application, we said, we will get it, will not work. You need to have it by, I think, March 30th, when is the deadline of this. You can ask questions when there is a period that you have ability. You can be a sub of someone. Again, the prime needs to have this requirement, not the sub. So I hope there are a lot of firms outside the Commonwealth, but it's critical for you to really understand the legal parameter within which you have to work with. Next. Those are the deadlines. So Wednesday, the supplemental package, February 15, the supplemental package was available. Today is the briefing. All written question needs to be submitted by Thursday, March 2nd by noon at cpbidquestions@massport.com, not to the project manager, not to anybody else. They have to be submitted in writing to CP bid question. Please do not reach out to me or to the project manager or to Peter. Every question is to be in writing to CP bid question. We will be posting the answer by March 9 on our website, and the qualification submittal is on March 30th, 2023 by noon. Please try to submit it. We stamp those. If it's 1201, they will not be admitted. So I think this is this is the last slide. Yeah. So we can leave it here. We can open to question. I'm just reminding people, please put your name, last name, company, and email address in the chat. Paula is collecting names and will be posting it on our website with a copy of the presentation. So we leave it up to question. Peter, John, Bill, Rai will be happy to answer. Okay, so we have Ken Russell. Raise his hand, please. Go ahead.
How are you? Thanks for having us. I noticed two things that were mentioned in this presentation. One was that we are limited to the current footprint of the existing buildings, but the other was that you are looking for out-of-the-box solutions. So should we not bring presentations that involve the construction of new structures completely or the raising of existing structures?
So this is a study. In the study, whoever is going to be selected will go from a wide range of ideas, which can be eliminating the building or redoing the building. So you don't have to propose anything for the RFQ response. It's a request for qualification, so it's not a request for proposal. Just want to make sure. I'm just trying to save your time. I know how much these ideas cost. But we want to know the best that it's out there that we can do, and then you will have to help us refine or redefine based on our goals. I don't know, Peter, Bill?
Yeah, I think that perhaps I was trying to think back in the supplemental package, what you read that gave you that idea. I think that that's not our intention. It really is purely that we were trying to explain what the existing infrastructure is and how its relationships with the distribution system and so forth. But very possibly, you could replace the entire heating plant if there was some reason to do that, or you could replace all, rather than trying to, rather than trying to retrofit terminals, it could very possibly be that there's a different solution. So exactly like Luciana said, we're pretty much open to anything. This is a challenging thing to accomplish, but tell us your thought process as to how you would approach it.
Thank you. There was nothing in the supplemental package with a limitation. It was something I just misunderstood from an earlier statement.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ken. Camille, I saw he raised his hand.
Yeah, is there a minimum desired DBE percentage goal?
No. we have not received any direction from our. That's for the design, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you want to have a question, maybe you raise your hand so it's coming all the way up, and then I'll give you. Otherwise, you're too many for me to scroll. Any other question? Oh, here we go, Stephanie.
Hi, nice to meet you, Stephanie with Safe Traces. Are you all considering or wanting to consider indoor air quality parameters as you look at also decarbonizing and installing and or replacing HVAC systems? Is that also a part of this consideration? Kind of finding that sweet spot between energy efficiency and indoor air quality.
I'll let Peter and Bill.
If I could start and then
Yeah.
Peter, I think that's a huge thing actually. For example, I was mentioning that the fan rooms that we've replaced here recently have, heat recovery wheels and everything else. We just have not taken it to the next step. So, for example, rather than running the boilers 24/7, if you can use outside air to temper the flow of air in the terminals and monitor the carbon dioxide in the spaces to make sure that there's an adequate amount of outside air, but not unnecessarily use outside air or condition air that doesn't need it. I think that's a huge part of the efficiency that can be derived from actually the existing infrastructure that we have in place if it was controlled properly and monitored properly, so that everyone was safe, comfortable, and the quality of air was fine, and we're not unnecessarily utilizing energy to make the space, to condition a space that doesn't need to be conditioned.
Thank you.
Peter?
I don't have anything
to add?
that. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Any other questions, Stephanie? You're all set? So, Joe Martorano.
Hey, how are you? This is Joe Martorano with ARO. I just have one question. The board requirement, can you put that slide back up for a second? I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing. It went by.
We can put it, but it's in the supplemental package. It's
Okay.
in bold, it's in the supplemental package. The challenge is that a lot of firms don't read it. So, because they believe it's boilerplate. So the board of directors defined by the MGL Chapter 7C, Section 44. The majority of the board of directors needs to be registered in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is a designer selection board contact information that if you Google Massachusetts Designer Selection Board, you can. It's a requirement that they put in place for us, not for us, for everyone. Yes. Any other question, Joe?
No, that was it. Thanks. I just wanted to copy that down. I'm not sure where it was.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Abe?
Hi, Luciana. You mentioned already that the presentation will be made available to the consultants. Just wanted to make sure. Will it be in the website, I would assume?
Yes, on our website is going to be with the list of the attendees.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Abe. Any other question? So I hope there is a lot of opportunity for subbing. I know a lot of the firms here. Please take the opportunity to look on the list by yourself too. And if you believe you can be a sub, bringing a specialty, just feel free to reach out to any of those people who are already here. Don't wait until we post it. So feel free to reach out. There are we are really looking forward to get the best consultants to help us in this effort. Joe, you still have your hand raised. You have another question? Yeah, Ken, I saw you, but I don't know if Joe. Okay, Ken, go ahead.
Thank you. There was a couple of recent updates someone had mentioned earlier, like the demand response fans and the heat recovery systems. I don't believe those were mentioned in the description in the supplemental of the existing system. Is there a place we can find what updates have been made in case they are still usable for future retrofits, so that we're not reinventing the wheel based on what you've already invested in? Maybe it fits perfectly in with the new plant. Is there some place to see those new technologies that have been updated over the recent years?
So I can start. I think once we select the consultant, the consultant will have everything available for him or her, not to start from zero. So yes, we don't think it's necessary for responding to an RFQ, right? Bill, I don't know if you want to elaborate.
No, I think that the message that we're trying to convey is that there's just a wide range of technologies. The new technology that's in Terminal E that there just hasn't even opened yet is completely different than the way the other terminals work. So I think it's, as John Capucci was explaining, I think that our objective is that you prepare a good characterization of the existing conditions using, we have a lot of BIM models too for pretty much all the terminals have BIM models for them, the central heating plant does, and then, you know, do the research, characterize the existing, and then use that characterization and the modeling of the systems to test various different alternatives, because it's all over the place. And I think that's one of the challenges that's there.
Got it, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other question? No? Okay, so I'm looking forward to receive proposals. If there are any questions left that you want, please submit it in writing anytime to the CPB questions at massport.com, and we'll be more than happy to answer and address them. So, and thank you, Bill and John and Peter for presenting today. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Paula?